My sister stole my parents on my wedding morning. She had no idea what she had just started. I have disarmed explosives in hostile territory. I have pulled wounded soldiers from burning wreckage. I have stood on the deck of a warship in a Category 4 storm and given orders with a voice that did not shake. But nothing, not one single moment in my entire military career, hit me the way that letter did. My name is Bella Braun, Lieutenant Commander, United States Navy, and on the morning I was supposed to become the happiest woman alive, my sister declared war on me. She had no idea I was trained for exactly this. The alarm on my phone read 5:47 a.m. when I opened my eyes. Wedding day. I lay still for exactly 30 seconds, an old military habit, scanning the room, orienting myself, breathing deliberately. The naval guest quarters were quiet. Outside the window, the Virginia sky was turning from black to deep purple. In 6 hours, I would be standing at an altar. I felt calm, centered, ready. Then I saw the envelope on the pillow beside me. It was pale cream-colored. My name was written across the front in handwriting I had recognized since childhood. Curling, precise, beautiful, the handwriting of someone who had always been told she was exceptional. My sister Diana's handwriting. I did not rush. I sat up slowly. I picked up the envelope. I held it for a moment the way you hold something you already know is going to hurt, not because you are afraid of pain, but because you are giving yourself one last second before everything changes. Then I opened it. Bella, by the time you read this, I have already taken Mom and Dad to Paris. I booked the flights 8 weeks ago. I know what you are thinking. I know how this looks. But I am not the villain here. I am the only one brave enough to tell you what everyone else is too afraid to say. Marcus Whitmore is not what he appears to be. His family is dangerous. There are federal connections you do not know about. There are secrets that will destroy your career, your reputation, and everything you have worked for. I have tried to warn you. You would not listen. So I did the only thing I could. I removed the people who love you most from a situation that is going to collapse. When it does, and it will, we will be waiting for you in Paris. Come to your senses, Bella. You are smarter than this, Diana. I read it twice. Then I folded it with the same careful precision I used when folding classified documents. I placed it in the drawer of the bedside table. I stood up. I walked to the mirror, and I looked at myself for a long, quiet moment. Then I went and put on my wedding dress. There is something nobody tells you about military training. It does not just teach you how to survive danger. It teaches you how to think inside it. When everything around you is designed to make you panic, you learn to slow down. You learn to separate facts from feelings. You learn that the person who controls their breathing controls the situation. Diana had written that letter to break me, to send me spiraling into doubt and grief on the one morning I deserved peace. She had taken my parents, the two people I had most wanted beside me, and she had done it with surgical precision, weeks in advance, with the confidence of someone who believed she knew exactly how I would respond. She had spent 34 years watching me, and she had still gotten me completely wrong. Because here is what Diana never understood about her sister. Bella Braun does not collapse under pressure. Bella Braun becomes sharper. I texted Marcus from the bathroom while my hands were still perfectly steady. Letter from Diana. Parents gone to Paris. I am fine. See you at the altar. His response came in 40 seconds flat. I am sending Admiral Hargrove to walk with you. And Bella, I love you. Nothing else matters today. I set the phone down and did my own hair. What Diana did not know about Marcus Whitmore would fill a classified briefing. She had done her research. I will give her that. She had found the federal investigation. She had found the Whitmore name buried in financial documents and news archives. She had built herself a convincing narrative and wrapped it in the language of sisterly love, and she had believed every word of it. But Diana researched the way most civilians do. She found the headline and stopped reading. The Whitmore family had not been investigated for wrongdoing. They had been the architects of the investigation itself. 4 years before I met Marcus, his father, Richard Whitmore, had discovered that 3 of his former business partners were running a defense procurement fraud operation worth over $2 billion. Instead of walking away, instead of protecting himself and his fortune and his name, Richard Whitmore had gone directly to federal prosecutors and spent 18 months as the government's primary cooperating witness. The case had resulted in 11 convictions. 2 of those convicted had been powerful enough to shake the foundations of Washington. The Whitmore family had been quietly, officially, and permanently recognized as one of the most trusted private entities in the American defense establishment. Marcus had never told me any of this, not because he was hiding it, but because it was not the kind of thing he led with. He was not that kind of man. His firm held maritime security contracts with the United States, the United Kingdom, Australia, and Japan. His personal security clearance was at a level that most military officers spent entire careers never reaching. He had been offered 3 different government positions in the past decade and had politely declined all of them because he preferred the work he was already doing. He drove a 5-year-old pickup truck. He made his own coffee every morning. He remembered the names of every person he had ever met. He had never once in 2 years together made me feel like anything other than an equal. My sister had tried to take this man from me, based on a newspaper headline she had misread. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Admiral James Hargrove arrived at my door at 8:15 a.m. in his full dress uniform. He was 61 years old. He had served in 3 conflicts. He had more decorations on his chest than most people had opinions. And when I opened the door and he saw me standing there in my wedding dress, alone, composed, chin lifted, he looked at me with an expression I had seen on his face only once before. The day I had received my lieutenant commander's commission. Pure, unqualified pride. He said nothing about Diana. He said nothing about my parents. He simply offered me his arm and said, "Ready, Commander." I took his arm. I said, "Aye, sir." We walked to the chapel together in the early morning Virginia sunlight, and I did not look back once. The chapel had been transformed overnight into something that belonged in a different world entirely. White orchids covered every surface, thousands of them, flown in from Thailand and the Netherlands, filling the space with a fragrance that was almost overwhelming. Ivory silk ribbons wound around the pews. At the front of the chapel, beneath an arch of eucalyptus and white roses, a string quartet played something slow and aching and perfect. The guests were already seated, and the guests were not what Diana had imagined when she pictured my wedding. There were decorated military officers from 4 different branches. There were 2 ambassadors. There was a former Secretary of Defense who had known Marcus's father since university. There was a sitting senator from Virginia who had specifically rearranged her schedule to attend. There was Elena Whitmore, Marcus's mother, in a champagne-coloured dress that probably cost more than most people's cars, sitting in the front row with the composed elegance of a woman who had been raised to be extraordinary and had simply never stopped. And there at the end of the aisle was Marcus. He was in a charcoal morning suit. No military theatre, no performance. Just Marcus standing perfectly still, watching the door with an expression of such complete and steady love that something moved through my chest like a current. When he saw me walk through those doors on the arm of an admiral, chin up, eyes clear, utterly unbroken, his jaw tightened for just a moment. Not sadness, something fiercer than sadness. Something that looked like the moment a person decides completely and finally that they are done tolerating certain things. I understood that expression. I wore it often myself. He met me halfway down the aisle. That was not in the plan. He simply walked forward and took both my hands and looked at me for a long moment without speaking. Then he said quietly, just for me, "She will never touch your life again. I promise you that." I believed him. We were pronounced married at 10:47 a.m. on a Tuesday in October. The reception was held at the Whitmore family estate 30 minutes outside the city. I had seen the estate before, but it still stopped me every time. 14 acres of manicured grounds, a Georgian manor house that had been in the family for 3 generations, a private lake that caught the afternoon light like hammered silver. Elena Whitmore had planned a reception that felt effortless and cost a fortune. A 12-piece orchestra, a catering team from New York, flowers that matched the chapel arrangements, and floating above the east garden, almost invisible until you looked directly at it, a network of cameras and lighting rigs belonging to a documentary crew from one of the largest television networks in the country. They had been following the Whitmore family for 7 months as part of a series on influential American dynasties. Marcus had agreed to limited access for the wedding. Limited, in the Whitmore family's definition, still meant 2 cameras at the ceremony and full coverage of the reception. The wedding aired in a primetime special 6 weeks later. I watched it from our living room with Marcus beside me and a glass of wine in my hand, and I felt, watching myself walk down that aisle on Admiral Hargrove's arm, composed, solitary, completely undefeated, something very close to gratitude. Gratitude for Diana, for what she had done, because the woman who walked through that chapel door was not softened by having her parents beside her. She was not smaller or sweeter or easier to overlook. She was exactly herself, fully and finally and without apology. 19 million people watched that special. Diana called for the first time 3 hours after it aired. I did not answer. I sat with the ringing phone in my hand and I breathed, and I thought about all the versions of myself that would have answered. The younger Bella who had spent decades trying to earn Diana's approval. The exhausted Bella who would have picked up just to make the discomfort stop. The people-pleasing Bella who had been trained since childhood to smooth things over and keep the peace and be the reasonable one. None of those women lived in me anymore. The calls continued for 4 days. Diana, then my mother, then my father, then Diana again. The voicemails ranged from apologetic to defensive to tearful to, on the third day, almost angry, as though my silence were a fresh offense layered on top of her original one. My mother's messages were the hardest to sit with. She cried in all of them. She said Diana had told her the wedding was postponed. She said she had not understood what was happening until she saw the broadcast. She said she was sorry, over and over, in the exhausted voice of a woman who was sorry, and also not entirely sure what she was apologizing for. I believed her sorrow. I was less certain about her innocence. Because here was the truth that nobody in my family wanted to say out loud. Diana had always been allowed to do what Diana wanted. The rules that applied to me, work harder, be reasonable, don't cause trouble, be grateful, had never quite applied to her. And my parents, good people in many ways, had spent 34 years enabling a dynamic they were only now being asked to reckon with. I saved every voicemail. I screenshotted every text. I created a document and I labeled it with the date, and I filed it the way I filed everything that mattered. Then I waited. On day 22, Marcus's legal team sent a letter to my parents' home address. It was 3 pages long, precise, professional, devastating in its quietness. It outlined Diana's false statements about the Whitmore family. It documented the timeline of her actions, the flights booked 8 weeks in advance, the deliberate misinformation given to our parents, the letter designed to cause maximum distress on the morning of the wedding. It noted that these actions had caused measurable and documented emotional harm to Lieutenant Commander Bella Braun Whitmore. It requested a formal written apology within 30 days. It noted, in its final paragraph, that the Whitmore family retained the right to pursue further remedies. Diana called 47 times in the 24 hours after that letter arrived. I answered on the 48th. She was already crying when the call connected. "Bella," she said, "Bella, please, I made a mistake. I genuinely thought I was protecting you. I thought the investigation, I thought Marcus was dangerous. I was trying to help you. You have to believe me. You are my sister and I love you and I never wanted to hurt you. Please, please talk to me." I let her finish, every word of it. I did not interrupt once. Then I said, "Diana, you did not make a mistake. Mistakes are accidents. You booked those flights 8 weeks before the wedding. You planned this, you chose this, and you chose it because some part of you could not stand to watch me have something you could not control." Silence. I continued, "I am not going to pretend this did not happen. I am not going to perform forgiveness so that everyone can be comfortable again. What I am going to do is give you 30 days to send that letter, because unlike you, I keep my word." Then I hung up. The letter arrived on day 29. It was 2 pages, handwritten, Diana's perfect curling script. It was the most honest thing she had ever written to me. I could feel it in the sentences, the places where the words seemed to cost her something real. She admitted the planning. She admitted the jealousy she had never acknowledged before. She said she had spent her whole life being told she was extraordinary and had somehow never noticed that being told you are extraordinary is not the same as actually becoming it. That last line stayed with me for a long time. Marcus's legal team accepted the letter. No further action was taken. Life moved forward with the efficient grace of a ship finding open water. I was promoted to commander 4 months after the wedding. Marcus's firm secured contracts with 2 additional allied governments. Elena Whitmore became one of the most important figures in my life, a woman who had built herself from the inside out and who recognized the same architecture in me. We had lunch every other Tuesday. She never once mentioned Diana. She did not need to. She understood, the way powerful women always understand, that the past is only useful as fuel. 8 months after the wedding, Marcus and I attended a state dinner at the British Embassy in Washington. I wore my dress whites, every decoration earned, every ribbon a story. Marcus stood beside me in a way that communicated, without a single word, that he considered being in my orbit a privilege. Across the room, halfway through the evening, I saw Diana. She was there with a date, a diplomat of some kind. She was dressed exquisitely, she had always known how to dress. She was smiling and animated and working the room with the ease of someone born to it. For one unguarded moment, I felt the old familiar contraction in my chest, the one that had lived there since childhood, the one that said, she will always be the one they see first. Then the British Defence Secretary tapped my arm to continue our conversation. Then Marcus leaned down and said something quietly in my ear that made me laugh. Then Elena appeared at my side and slipped her arm through mine and said, "You are the most impressive person in this room, darling. I need you to know that I mean that literally." I looked across at Diana one more time. She was watching me, and the expression on her face was not envy this time. It was not calculation. It was something older and sadder and more honest than anything I had seen from her before. It was the face of someone who finally understood what they had thrown away. I held her gaze for a moment, then I smiled, small, real, the kind of smile that does not need anything from the person receiving it. Then I turned back to my life. I think about forgiveness sometimes, what it actually means. The military definition, if there were one, might be this: forgiveness is not the elimination of consequence. It is the decision to stop letting someone else's choices occupy space in your mission. Diana made her choices. She will live inside them for a long time. Maybe forever, maybe not. That is her work to do, not mine. My work is different. My work is the woman I am still becoming. The commander who walked down the aisle alone and did not flinch. The wife who chose a man not for what he had, but for who he was. The daughter who finally stopped shrinking herself to make her family more comfortable. My work is this, showing up every single day as the fullest version of Bella Braun. No apology, no performance, no letter required. My sister tried to destroy my wedding morning with a piece of paper. She forgot that I had spent 20 years learning how to walk through fire. She forgot that the women who survive the hardest things do not just survive them. They become them. And they stay silent, not because they have nothing to say, but because they have already won. If this story moved something in you, if you have ever been underestimated by someone who should have known you better, share this with someone who needs to hear it today. Leave a comment below. Tell me your story. The women who stay silent and still come out standing deserve to be seen. Like and subscribe and join this community of people who know that the quietest strength is always the most powerful kind. I read every single comment, everyone.